as they come. First and foremost, thanks for making it. I know it's a busy Monday, whatever day it is, it's busy. So thanks for being here. I think most importantly tonight, I wanted to start with a couple of things that are been in my mind recently. Number one, swimming. I think that's probably something we need to just glaze over just to kind of set some standards and just kind of some intentions for the whole year. I mean, this shouldn't really change, but it's just a process that we all need to start thinking about a little differently. And next, I'll go into a quick little presentation about habits and goals, because for me, this has never just been about a race or showing up and having the best result. And then that's really all that matters. It's about the habits I've formed, the relationships, the journey. It's really been a lot more in terms of depth rather than just a goal. And I think as a lifestyle, this sport lends itself to a pretty damn good way to live. Not only that it's like a little expensive here and there, but just the day-to-day routines, everything that you learn as an endurance athlete, I think they're life-changing. And I think you've all experienced it. So how do we expand and keep going? We're obviously doing it now, but the biggest thing is we got to keep doing it better. We have to do it well so we can expand the sport. So let's dive into swimming. Swimming, you cannot, and you've probably heard this, but you cannot approach it the same way you do with your biking and your running. You can't just show up, read the workout real quick, just kind of glaze over it, know that you're going to work hard and you're going to rest, then you're going to probably figure it out. Swimming is an ecosystem in itself. It requires so much of your ability to understand your body. And that's the hardest part. It was like people just don't understand their body, how to move their hips, how to put timing into it, how to think about two or three things at once. So you're never going to, this is a frustration. And we were talking about this at camp when we had Greg Harper. He's one of the better swimmers I've ever been around in terms of his ability and also the way he and I kind of think about swimming. Swimming is never one of those things where you're just going to show up and feel off. And unless you address the mechanisms that are causing you to feel off, you're not going to have that great swim. You're not going to be able to turn the key and have become a better swimmer just by putting in the effort. And how many times have you swam? Like, this is a serious question you should ask yourself. How many years have you been swimming as a triathlete? And how much progression have you seen? Have you seen 120 per 100 go down to 115, down to 113? Or have you seen 140 per 100 go down to 130, down to 120? Have you seen your 500 time trial get better? Have you seen those Ironman 70.3 times go from 40 minutes down to 30 minutes? And if you haven't, that's that's not good, because think about the amount of time and energy and swim memberships and trying to make sure you stay in the pool and lessons. And I'm telling you that if you haven't had those successes, it's because you're just thinking about it improperly. You're not wrong. You're not really connecting the dot between what you're hearing and what your body needs to actually do. You're not like getting a little bit higher level thought process. And the tools that matter are not just figuring out which paddle, which buoy, which whatever you might need, actual tools. It's what mental tools are you lacking to physically interpret what your body and mind need. And normally it comes down to physical limitations that you're dealing with, whether it's a lack of shoulder mobility. Like if you can't, most people, like a lot of gym bros we take on when they reach, they're like, this is as far as they can reach. But as a swimmer, you need to reach and you need to be able to reach back behind your ears. That shoulder mobility, then you need to be able to have this articulation of the shoulder when it's high. That's key. And if you can't do that, there's dry land swim work. So it's frustrating as a coach sometimes when you have an athlete who really is putting in the time, but you're just kind of surface level. You're not figuring out, well, I need to be slimmer in the water. I need to be longer because I'm swimming really wide and I'm catching a lot of draft and I'm swimming really low and I'm really heavy and I'm not flip turning. I'm not carrying a lot of breath in my chest. I'm not keeping myself buoyant. I'm not keeping that head, that like there's your butt in the center. I'm not keeping this kind of like feet and head at the surface. So, and you're also not varying your intensities enough. You don't have to do long, steady 2,000-meter sets all at once to get faster for your Ironman. You have to do explosiveness. You have to do long lactate sessions. Short lactate tolerating sessions with short rest that are repeatable, because you have to define that ceiling, then you have to work on the floor, just like you have to do with swimming or biking and running. But you just can't take the training protocol as like, oh, if I want to go faster when I run, I just run harder. I want to go faster when I ride my bike, I just pedal with more power. The swim, you can work harder and you can go slower and you can burn out harder. So I want you all to take swimming seriously this year. I want you to understand the tools, the techniques, ask the questions. If you don't know why the drill is working or put in there or how to execute it properly, and you've watched all the videos and you've had 17 swim instructors over the last 5 years, like the problem is within your brain, within how you're conceptualizing how to work it. And if you're only swimming 6 to 10,000 yards, maybe even tens, like still not that good. But if you're doing like 6,000 to 10,000 yards, you're not really going to get that much better because it's just not enough time for you to really figure out what you need to do. Also, your swim ecosystem. What time you get into the pool? Which hours you get into the pool? Are you willing to sacrifice some of your bike and run workouts that you're already improving and thriving on to get better as a swimmer? Are you going to do double swim days? Are you going to do master sessions where you have to hold yourself accountable because somebody's on your feet? So, anyways, swimming for me is something that I really want you all to take extra serious this year. And I want you to set a habit and a routine and a goal that is going to make sure that like you hold yourself accountable. I'm going to take 30 seconds off my best 100 or my best 500 or whatever. I'm going to take 10 seconds off my 100 by May or June. And if you're not setting that quantifiable difference and that change, and if you're not willing to increase from 4,000 yards a week up to 8,000, up to 12,000, up to 15,000, because I know it's a big jump in pace times. And like if you're swimming 2 minutes per 100, you're in the pool a long time if you're doing 3,000. So as you get faster, you're going to be getting more yards done. So that's the key. Remember that you get faster, you're going to get more done in the pool all at once. It's going to be more beneficial. So think about that. This is going to be something that's kind of like the trend of this chat is going to be what are you going to do quantifiably with specificity, time, dates, whatever. How are you going to make it happen? Because statistics prove that if you set a very vague intention or a vague habit, you're not going to get anywhere near 50% of the outcome that you want. You have to be very specific. I'm going to swim 15,000 yards every week for the next 3 months. And yeah, you may have to go plus or minus a few here and there due to whatever happens. But unless you're willing to make those changes, nothing is going to happen in the pool that's going to get you to a different part of the race. Why do we do it? Because guess what? Swimming is also for longevity of your lifespan. It's going to be there with you no matter what you do as you age. It's going to keep you healthier, your joints and bones and muscles, your posture. It's going to be better for you. Most athletes who I coach are doing it for fitness, but I've had some athletes in their 60s who come and they just want me to help them get fit just so they can be healthier and go on walks and stuff. So it's transformative. Don't sell yourself short. Ask your coaches good questions, and hopefully you'll see some success. We do have on our pro squad this year, we do have Greg Harper. We do have Mark Dubrick. We have coaches like Jonathan Ockert, who were just at camp working with Greg, getting assessed by Greg also. Garrick was there too. Like we've got good swimmers and you need to just be asking questions. Video yourself off and send them to your coach, get feedback. If you can't see what you're doing, like I just had a guy today. I was watching him swim for the first time and he was just literally placing his hands over right in front of his face, just like this. And then he was straightening out after underwater. And that is so much wasted time and effort. And all I had to do was tell him to reach towards the lane lines when he enters the pool. And it brought him from here to like straight here. So that perception versus reality in the pool is always going to be different. It's going to feel really weird. And that's the point. So I think any questions on the swim before I transition into kind of my mastering habits for endurance success? You can put them in the chat. You can unmute and whatever, or put your hand up. If not, I'll move on. I'll give you a second while I change screens. All right, moving on. So hopefully you can see, I'm not going to launch the full PowerPoint because it's been like really glitchy lately in terms of showing all the verbiage, but it can, someone who's just unmute and let me know if you see the main slide. One, taking two, taking, okay, Cheyenne.
Yeah, it looks good.
All right, thanks, team. All right, got another guy coming in too. So this year is a great year because, we all hit this point in our, I guess, as we're ending 2024, we're moving into 2025, we're like feeling better about it. We actually, maybe sometimes during the holidays you feel a little shitty because you're not like, you don't have those goals. You're not pursuing anything besides how do I not spend as much money and how can I get away from my family a little bit more because my in-laws are crazy. Those types of things. And then you're like worn out and tired and you got to get back to work. So it's almost just like you're building more momentum as you hit the first of the year and you're feeling great. And then the gyms are packed and you're annoyed. So that's the sequence of events for most of us. But I would say internally, those habits that you've sat on, what are the things that you've pushed off in 2024, whether it's a sequence of events that you need to change. It could be getting up immediately when you wake up, throw the leg out of bed. It could be I think most of the things I learned at camp, because I gave this presentation at camp, most of it was getting up and holding yourself accountable to get things done early and quickly and not procrastinate. Don't put things off. So I think that's really some of the habits that we need to master if we're going to be endurance athletes with this already busy lifestyle that you have as high performing individuals. So I read a book, go figure, read a book, crazy. Actually, no, I didn't read it. I listened to it because I get in trouble all the time by my kid if I say I read it because I listened to it on Audible, and it was called Atomic Habits. So I pulled a lot of quotes because I read this book and I listened to this book and I was like, I feel like I think these things all the time, or I relay these things all the time, and I think they're super helpful. So what happens is harnessing habit formation. Let's think about what habits really are and the science behind them, because that's really where you can fundamentally start to understand why you do what you do. So the formation of a habit, so that can significantly enhance your endurance training either way, right? Plus endurance training or con endurance training, a form of a habit. Oh, I think someone needs to mute.
Sorry.
That's okay. And then by developing these better habits, you can improve your consistency, focus, performance. And you don't have to be like a robot either. You don't have to be, I have no fun. This is what drives me nuts about a lot of pro athletes is they kind of cut everything out of their lives and they think they can only be one version of themselves and eliminate all fun. You can have some fun. That's the point of Real Tri Squad. So, and then we're going to adopt small, manageable changes that are going to lead to remarkable results over time. A small change now can lead to a remarkable result over the end of this season. So remember that. I want you right now to think about 2 or 3 habits, and then we'll narrow it down to one, but think about 2 or 3 habits that you know that you need to fix. It could be I procrastinate this task, or I do this too much at night instead of go to bed, or I spend too much time wasting or giving my time away versus bringing time into myself and my family. So I think that's a really good place to start because we all have that right now. Could be like, I just need to go grocery shopping all the time. So then I don't. And then I just eat out and I spend a lot of excess money, or I have too many streaming services and I know that I don't watch any of them. And I just click through and I'm pissed that I can't find anything to watch. So I'm going to get rid of some streaming services. So, anyways, we'll move on. I could go on and on. Habits are the automation of your daily routine. So the habits are there because you do things so often that you almost create an efficiency path towards not having to think about it so much. Brushing your teeth, when you have a sequence of events in the morning, for me, it's like wake up, go downstairs, give the dog a treat. So they'll go outside and then come back in, then make my coffee. So those types of things are kind of habits that I just lean into. And those are almost positive habits that make my day really special because they're like my own controlled time before I get to the chaos of everything else. So a habit is a good thing, unless it's for an avoidance or it's for you figuring like you would rather do this than that. My screen just went nuts. It looks like it's still there. So this quote right here, the first mistake is never the one that ruins you. It's the spiral of repeated mistakes that follow. Missing once is an accident, and missing twice is the start of a habit. That's pretty powerful. Think about things that you've just done once or twice, and then all of a sudden, like 10 years later, you're like, why do I keep going to the same pizza joint? It's awful, but I hate it. And but it's the only one I really can rely on for that terribleness. Like it's like you can rely on the habit of being disappointed. Think about those types of things. repeated mistakes turn into negative trends within your performance, especially as an athlete, because your job as an athlete is to always be squeezing that sponge to get everything out of yourself. That's why you've hired a coach. That's why you're part of this program. That's why you're doing triathlon, because you like the challenge, you like the endorphin rush. But if you have habits, you always say the same thing. Oh, I can't be this person, or I'll never be a good swimmer. Well, guess what? You won't be a good swimmer. That's a bad habit to always neg yourself. So anytime you say something bad about yourself, say two good things about yourself. And I'm not going to be a good swimmer right now, but I guess I'm a really good cook and I got really good style. Like those are a couple things like you can always try to rebuild negative patterns by emphasizing good patterns. So don't make these one or two instances of something being delayed a habit. So think about some things that you might do there. Next quote, it is easy to get bogged down trying to find the optimal plan for change, right? Think about how many hacks we have right now. I got to be the best. If I'm not doing it and spending all this money on it and someone didn't tell me about it, and then these Instagram influencers aren't using it, then it must not be the most best effective thing. So we get so caught up in having to be the most perfect version of this concept that we forget that it starts small and it builds and it's ugly. And sometimes you make mistakes and you have to restart and then you have to redo it again. Like, don't get bogged down into having to have an optimal plan straight away. Just start. The same thing when you're like, the last thing I could ever want to do right now in my life is run. I'm so tired, whatever. But if you think about that over and over, you're going to not run. But if you just, even if you're saying that while you're tying your shoes and then you're still making yourself take those first 20 steps and then you're running and you're like, all right, lights have switched. I am now running and I don't want to stop. Or I need to go to this guaranteed 10-minute point. That way I get 20 minutes no matter what, because I got to run back home. Don't get bogged down in having to have it to be perfect. Fastest way to lose weight, the best program to build muscle, the perfect idea for a side hustle. Everyone wants instant gratification. So remember, those are only the best thing for you. Same thing with swimming. How do you understand what's happening in front of you that your body's doing? Doesn't have to be the best for somebody else. It just needs to be the best for your ability to understand it. So don't be so focused on figuring out the best approach that you never get around to taking the action that is required. And that's really important. And I've been doing that for like a couple days. Like I've got to sign up for Ironman South Africa. I've got everything signed up. And Ironman's emailed me all the things I have to do, but I just haven't done it because I've been focusing on other things. Same thing with Challenge Roth. Like I've just been like, I want to do it when I have no other distractions so I can just get everything dialed in. But that's not going to happen. So I've been making that a delay for like a week because I feel like I have to have the perfect moment throughout my day to like focus and feel good about signing up for this race, even though I've already bought tickets to go there. So anyways, that's something I had to figure out. And as Voltaire once wrote, the best is the enemy of the good. So remember, you can just be good. You can be moving along, making progress, and you don't have to be chasing that gold. You can always go silver, bronze, and still be pretty cool. Trust me. A lot of Olympians would say that. All right, next slide. Consistency. This is your only weapon, by the way, as a endurance athlete. If you can't maintain consistency, if you have 2 days that are great and 7 days that are really subpar, and then you go on a vacation, like you're not holding true to the consistency of growth. That's the number one investment you can put into yourself within a lot of things is just being consistent. And that means being guarded of your needs. You have to put up that blocker and say, I got to take care of me before I can take care of everybody else. I'm sorry. I know how this goes. If it's a slippery slope, once you start giving away to everybody else, then you feel worse about yourself, then you feel guilty about creating these negative habits, and then you try to feel good about it, but then you can't. So it's a really vicious cycle. So take care of you and be consistent with your programming, and it's all going to go well. Okay, to the quote. When scientists analyze people who appear to have tremendous self-control, it turns out those individuals aren't at all different from those who have struggled. Instead, disciplined people are better at structuring their lives in a way that does not require heroic willpower and self-control. So just to be disciplined, to get things done on time and efficiently, and guess what? To be really good at most things in this life that we live in, all you have to do is like do what you said you're going to do, and people are going to be stoked about it. I can promise you, because there's a lot of people underachieving who overpromise, underdeliver, slow the process down, break the cycle, create distrust. You don't have to do that. Be accountable to what you said you're going to do. And that takes discipline, self-control and discipline. And, you've got like the conversations you have within yourself and you have the conversations that you're telling everybody else. And most specifically, how many times have you stated a goal or talked about a goal and told your friends you're going to do this stuff? But then by the time the goal or the thing comes around, you're a little bit disappointed. You're like, well, this wasn't quite as good. And you kind of like took all the steam out of your sail before you could even give yourself a chance to experience it, because statistics show that when you talk about a goal too much, it does give you that endorphin rush and it makes it feel like it's already happening. And so you lose a little bit of steam. I like to keep a lot of my internal goals a little close to myself, and I'll agree with things, but I won't just kind of like run my mouth about it. And the more things that I do run my mouth about, the less I do. I've noticed that a trend for sure. And think about that too. How many times have you done it yourselves? I mean, it's not uncommon. And when it comes to discipline, I don't care how motivated you are when you sign up for that race in 8 months. It's going to take discipline and not motivation to get your ass there, in the shape, in the health and wellness and mental just acuity to make sure that you've got it. If you're afraid to struggle during training, if you're afraid to push it during the efforts, if you're not willing to pull off the band-aid and send it on some of these opportunities to push yourself, you're pulling away from the major factor of this opportunity, which is consistent growth. And that takes discipline. So again, you don't have to do it perfect. You just have to do it. And you're going to fail. You're going to have to restart. You're going to be disappointed. You may get hurt. You may come back and learn. Like, we have incredible people on this Endure All coaching community who do all kinds of amazing things with one less limb, or with a child who has autism or something that's incredibly time consuming and really challenging. I've seen some of the most strong minds just in this sport in general. And that's why triathlon isn't just a goal that you just talk about and you live for that moment at the finish line. It's a really nice moment and it's worth celebrating. It is your victory lap, but it's the journey that takes there. That's why we've got our embrace the journey slogan that is so important to me. Like, you're going to cultivate a new life, environment, habits, and these goals that you are working back from. They're valuable, but they're not just the only thing. The goal is just something that you can put something on your wall and look back on as a reflection. The journey and the people and the experiences along the way are what really teach you that you do have self-control and you are heroic on race day. And if you are struggling, somebody else is struggling, come together and learn from each other and be disciplined as a collective to hold each other accountable. So remember, consistency is your only weapon. And if you can't get to that, you're going to always be struggling. You're going to be coming back to your coach. You might be blaming others, but if you focus on taking care of you, it's going to just pay in dividends. So let's look a little deeper. Habits. How do you change habits? To the quote, it's hard to change your habits if you never change the underlying beliefs that led you to your past behavior. You have a new goal and a new plan, but you haven't changed who you are. It's like you bought this brand new, beautiful car, but you haven't changed the engine out, and it's just going to blow up and not get you there any faster. Remember, we've all been, man, it's crazy. We've all been just like marketed to, told what's important, told how to think. We don't really own a lot of what we think we own, and we are just having so much taken from us and energy from social media and news and marketing. You don't have a lot that is truly passionate to you if you really think about it. You've got your family, and that's kind of about it. So I think when you look at to how you were raised, the beliefs you have, and what past behaviors led you to be the person you are today, it's really important to say, like, well, I've been avoiding handling conflict. I've been avoiding any situations that make me feel uncomfortable. And I'm not really keen on putting myself out there as much as I really want to be. I think that's really where you have to look at that level of awareness, right? How are your decisions impacting everybody's? How is your inability to pay attention at a green arrow making everybody miss their appointments by 2 minutes because you were texting or something? How are you being aware enough to understand that you have the repeated habits of having to cause drama to feel good about your life because it's the only thing that is like real, is just conflict sometimes. Good things don't seem as good anymore because we're all, I mean, you've probably seen those ads, right? Like, You're addicted to swiping. You're addicted to a constant inflections of light on your eyes to tell you what matters. So we have to change who we are if we want to understand what we need to get out of ourselves. And this doesn't have to be even sport related. It doesn't have to be about a PR. The PR is just part of the process, and and that's a revolving door of processes. So it doesn't matter like if you had a good day or a bad day, there's a next day, because that's really all that people are going to ask you about after you've won and you're a champion and you're whatever. People are going to just still care about what you're going to do next. So remember, that's why it's so important to remember all the steps that you took to get there, including being a different person when you've finally accomplished that goal, right? Be different. Next quote. Complaining about not achieving success despite working hard is like complaining about an ice cube not melting when you've heated it from 29 or 25 to 31 degrees. Your work was not wasted. It's just being stored. All the action happens at 32 degrees. This was a quote I thought was really good. Because he kind of paints this nice picture about, think about something that is frozen. Think about an ice cube. And you could start looking at that ice cube when it's like at negative 18 degrees, right? And you're just going to blow on it and forever. And like you might see that go up a little bit, and that's a lot of work and energy expended. Or you might be chipping away at something forever, and then you finally hit critical mass. Your work towards a process is never wasted as long as it's disciplined and it's consistent. Because even if you were to heat that ice cube up for 5 to 6 years and it never melted and you just gave up, but guess what? You only needed to heat it up for another 2 degrees. Like, that's what I tell people about Real Tri Squad and what I'm trying to do. Like, the only way this stops is if I stop. The only way this doesn't grow anymore is if I decide that I'm kind of done with it. Obviously, Adam is part of this now too, and maybe he can take all of it from me and I won't have to do it anymore. That's what we're hoping, Adam. You're the man. I'm just kidding. So when it comes to all of those hard days at the office where you feel like you're just killing yourself, but you're not getting any faster, or you're whatever is, I felt this way with running for a long time, where I was like, man, I've been stuck at 1 minute or 1 hour 18 off the bike for like 2 years. And it took me forever just to get down to like 115 or 14. And still, like now I want to, I mean, everyone's running 109. So I need to go like 112s if I have a chance to even be in the mix. Like, it's just what it takes. And if I had quit, if I had been disheartened, if I didn't pursue this, I could have missed that melting point. If you don't commit all the way through and just remember that this is up to you, and it's not just about that goal, it's about what you're learning through the process and the person you're becoming, you might be missing out and negating all that stored action you've put towards something very, very important. So I think this is just a really good way to think about things. You might be working hard. It might be feeling like you're not going anywhere, but trust me, you are. And you're only just increasing the temperature incrementally until you hit 32 degrees when you've made that change and it melts. Okay. So think about it like that. And then one more slide, and then we'll maybe just open the floor and talk about your habits that I've been asking you to think about. One habit, and you can type it in, or maybe just type it in the chat of your habit, and I'll just kind of roll through them. And if you want, you can elaborate, but it's not mandatory. All right, so let's send it home. The purpose of goal setting, right? That's to win the game. Winning is still fun. It's also like a checkpoint. Losing is also a checkpoint. It's also important. The purpose of building systems is to continue playing the game, right? What if you just won that one game and it was over and you're like, all right, now you got to go do something else completely different. Just go figure it out, learn it. Like, that would not be very fun. You want to, like every NBA championship, they're like, all right, now we got to go win the other championship. We got to win next year. And then if we don't, we feel like failures for some reason. So it's just kind of a pain in the ass to hear and see all the strife of, just one thing toppling down so much really good work that you've done. So true long-term thinking is goalless thinking. And that's what it kind of transitions more to, like the purpose of this talk. Like, it's not about any single accomplishment you have within this sport. It's about the cycle of endless refinement and continuous improvement. Ultimately, it's your commitment to the process that will determine your progress. So remember that. It's like so important. There's always another goal. There's always a revolving door of opportunities to figure out what you want to be good at. And then you may have the courage one day to change it and start into something new. Like maybe you'll just only ride your bike, or maybe you'll do rock climbing or something. So triathlon isn't just the only thing. It's just part of a sequence of events in your life that you've found that give you hope and gratification and community and self-worth and opportunities to challenge yourself. Like think about your whole life. You've been a revolving door of cycles of learning, testing, grading, learning, testing, grading from school all the way to college, all the way until you get your first job. Then you're learning, testing, and then you want to get promoted. Then you're learning, testing, and you want to get another raise, or you get whatever. We're always learning, looking continually for that next step, nonstop. That's like ingrained into us since we've been born. We have to continue to pursue more. And so whether that's like what we're supposed to be doing or we're just like so used to it, we're here. And your commitment to the process you're putting into this sport, maybe it's swimming, maybe you, whatever it is, you're going to get out of it based off of that level of commitment and discipline and where your mental headspace is with that internal dialogue about it. Because if you always say you don't like something, if you're never going to be like it, that's why I say the probably most rude comment, and it's annoying to the people I say it to because they're like, oh, I can never do that. And I'm like, not with that attitude. I mean, it's funny. There's this guy back in Florida. His name was Joey. He was a triathlete I coached for like 3 years. He was so funny. He would always say, well, not with that attitude. And he was like this big like nerd, and like he just made the best jokes ever. But anyways, I think that that is just such a powerful way to think about things. Next time you think you can't, or you say it out loud, or you just don't believe in yourself, just, well, of course, not with that attitude, you will not. So I think for me, your goals are important, right? But any athlete that comes to me and only wants to go to Kona or Boston or whatever it is, like you have to look so much deeper if you want this to be meaningful and make lasting change and be a better person, and use this as a lifestyle of entertainment and growth and opportunity. Like triathlon is just a fun way to live. You get to see and go so many places. So that's what I wanted you to remember tonight. The goals you've set, let's work backwards and let's figure out the habits that need to be adjusted in order for you to get to those amazing goals. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing screen and go to comments. See if we got any. What? None. All right. So, anyways, I want to hear, type in there which habits you know you need to make a difference on. Waking up earlier. That's a really consistent one. 4:45 is a new 4:50. Oh man, Natalie's already getting up early as it is. Because that extra 5 minutes can make a big deal. I'm sure. I'm sure that like it's like walking up and down the stairs twice. So Gabe says he eats too fast. So man, Jackson eats too fast, and he holds a fork like this, like a Neanderthal. Like I think he needs to fix that one. Mike Olson, get up when his alarm goes off. Yes, Mike was at camp. He got to hear this in person, and he said that there too, where how many times do you hit snooze, right? Maybe that snooze button is causing you a delay in getting things done in your day, or maybe you're not showing up with the right mindset because you're having to rush. So 5 minutes of waste can make a pretty negative impact when you've really got only 5 minutes on the tail end of your workout to get ready for the next thing. So what else we got? Everyone get in the chat and start putting the habits you need to change. I think for me, one of them is most of my Ironmans, and I've done a lot of full distance Ironmans. I've done probably 15 or 16 of them. I think if I look back, I've had some level of small GI issue on most of them. And as much as I'm like, yeah, I train with the same fuel, I might not do it exactly the same as I do on race day, right? Like I might add this or change this, and I don't just stick to the very science-based and logic-based approach to I know what I know based off of the data and the training. And like, of course, I want all of you to test it. But when I've been saying that, I'm like, yeah, I use the same fuel, but my quantities just differ for the climate. So I'm going to get methodical with my nutrition this year. I'm going to replicate the outputs, the the heat running outside off the bike. Like it's mainly during the run where I have those problems. So, anyways, that's something I figured out. All right. Kelly said she's going to focus on the warm up, cool down, stretching as much as the main workouts of a swim, bike, and run. Yeah. And that is awesome. I think that's something I noticed Jackson started doing a couple years ago when we go train. Like he would spend an extra, he still does, probably an extra 5 minutes on the pool deck, just getting warmed up and making sure he's understanding how his shoulders are feeling, his hips. He'll do some band work to kind of get a little, hold on, dog. All right. And we're back. So that has been something that's helpful. And I think also it trains your body in repetitive matters of like ankling, how your lower legs are firing. If you've got routinely tight Achilles, all these things you do for warm up, even if you warm up in bed, like sometimes I have to like stretch my Achilles and get my ankles warmed up. So those first couple of steps aren't very ginger. Great one, Kelly. I like it. AJ, he needs to cut down on snacking. Snacking is usually boredom, nerves, or you're just so inundated with having to do things all the time that it's hard for you to just sit still. So snacking in itself isn't like you are addicted to just food. It's like you're addicted to the habit of like doing something with your hand to mouth, or you just love getting up every 30 minutes and going to the pantry and just seeing what's in there, even though you know damn well what's in there. And I think that's something that we've seen in the past where people are like, or we'll tell folks, go brush your teeth instead of going to the pantry. And that habit is then detoured. And then you're just going to have like a nice fresh mouth of toothpaste. And you're like, I guess I don't really, I'll drink some water. Or maybe I'll have something less large portion size. So those are very good ones. Garrick's going to pack his run stuff so that he can run from work and finish training by 7 p.m. instead of starting at 7 p.m. That's massive because that cycle, Garrick, it's just puts you so far back in the day when your sleep's off for the next day and you can't get up early for the next day because you're just so dedicated to, or you're so driven towards making sure you get enough sleep because recovery is just as important as the training itself in what we do. It's the only difference between a pro athlete on on big levels. So making sure that Garrett can get his stuff done on the way home versus having to get home and then go out again. I hate running errands personally. If I will not run an errand unless it's attached to something I have to do, like on the way home from the pool or whatever, I freak out. Vivienne, fuel during workouts, even if I feel like I don't need it, especially on the bike. The bike is a picnic. You can get away with it there. Like I think I had 4 Little Debbies on my 3.5 hour ride today. Like I just love Little Debbies, and so those are great. And I had some, regular fuel too. But the bike, if it's just a bike workout, you can get away with. I drank another cup of coffee. I've had bowls of cereal. I've had cake. I mean, you can eat anything you want on the bike, and you're not punished for it. So I mean, especially on the trainer. Outside, obviously, you're not eating a sub sandwich. So in fueling also, nutrition and fueling, two different things. Fueling is during the session or before, during, and after, and then nutrition is what you're generally recovering with throughout the rest of the day. Those are two massive things that remember how you were raised tells you a lot about how your nutrition is, how your relationship with cooking, how you hate or love certain foods. So that's it. Like analyze yourself. What are some of these habits that I've been avoiding or creating because of an avoidance problem, or I've streamlined so much that I forget why that I do them. And now I just need to cut the cord. So, or validate, like this habit obviously makes me $10,000 a day. So I'm going to keep doing this habit. Thank you very much. All right, Nathan, I absolutely have to meal prep on the weekends so that I can get from work to evening training sessions quickly and well fueled. That's really tough to do also because sometimes, and we all talk about the meal prep and it's like great to prep it and get it all sorted out. It's like the organizational wet dream. But then it's like I already know what I'm going to eat on next Thursday, or I know pretty much like my options. And sometimes it gets a little mundane. So you got to switch it up. You got to put some new sauces on there. We had to do that with MREs sometime when we were out in the field in the Air Force. We have to like combine different MREs. Gabe knows what's up because he's in the Navy. Michael, you know what's up because you were in the Air Force, now you're retired or you got out early. So how many times have you put some crazy meals together? Like even tonight, Amy was like, well, what should we make for dinner? I was like, what should we make? We've got leftovers from 2 nights ago. We can make anything we want. We can make a soup and sandwich combo like it's Panera Bread. We can take some of that stuff and make a crazy enchilada. Like, just be creative. And I think thinking ahead also, like Nathan, that's great. The meal prep stuff does take a lot of time. And it is like a nice event. You can watch a show while you're doing it. So, anyways, good job. Any other suggestions? Because we've got 18 people on the call, and I haven't seen like 18 suggestions of their habits that need to be changed come through, unless you're just like not listening. And that's fine. You're just missing out on changing some habits. All right. Well, I think unless we get any more rolling in, I'm pretty set. Does anyone have any personal testimonial or add-ons for what I said that they'd like to, hey, this is what I have done to change my life in a positive way, or this is something I used to do that I know I gotta not do, like personal testimonial, any stuff like that you want to say? Gerald?
This is something that we kind of discuss at camp with it, but when you're starting a new habit, especially coming from a coaching perspective, say we always talk about building frequency first, right? And what that is essentially when we build frequency into training is that we want you to do it often and do it right. So we start small. So it's usually a small, easy session. So it's something that's easy to get done. And then we build on that. And that's something that you can really bring into any sort of habit that you're doing, whether it's, if it's meal prep, then they don't have to be super complex meals. They can just be rice with some freeze dried vegetables on there with chicken that you cooked or something like that, and just stack those, right? And just start that and start it small. But yeah, that's something we touched upon at camp that I think we missed this time.
Perfect. I agree. Doesn't have to be that gold standard. It just needs to be good enough. And I think also when you do make these habits is, like I said, it's important for you to be specific with the time and the date and maybe the time of day that you plan to get these things done, because that's super important. And in the book, they were saying that even at Disney, all the people who were like watching the safety of the rides, they point and they give a verbal on everything they do. Like everyone has to have their hands, eyes looking up and around. And that's because it statistically like eliminates 90 something percent of possible problems. So that's great. Be specific. Lily said I should probably practice better. Probably, I'm guessing you're saying food, not making enough, so it's rushed. Yeah. Even if you got to, if like, I'm not a big fan of just shakes all the time, but a shake after you finish to work out on your way to work, or a shake between to get something calories in as fast as you can. Jackson did a nutrition presentation at camp, and you've got that roughly hour window where your body is going to be hungry to refuel and absorb and process much faster and more much faster and more efficiency wise. That's the goal. So I think making sure you get it done then is key. Not wait. Like, I don't understand this comment. Maybe someone can help me out. But when people just say like I forgot to eat, like, I'm sorry, but I have like way too good of a relationship with food to like forget about it for like more than 10 minutes. So I think forgetting about food means that you just don't you haven't had a good meal. Like, you just don't even know what good food is yet. Because once you get it, you're like, you don't never forget. Okay. So those are pretty much what I wanted to present you tonight about. I want those habits to substantiate to something more than just getting to that goal because you want to win something or what be cool for 10 seconds on social media. I want it to be a journey. I want it to be impactful. I want you to take step-by-step procedures and understand and have a higher level of awareness so you feel good about what happens on race day, no matter what. Because even if you got a flat or you blew up at mile 16 because you went too hard on the bike, but you just felt so good and you sent it. I mean, that's still opportunity. You learned. And maybe that next race you do, you're going to have more reserve for it. Like, you cannot be so hard on yourself for being not okay sometimes. Like, just be okay not being okay. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have the biggest boat, the best house, the whatever. Like, you just have to be very happy within it yourself and stop looking around at all the other shiny things that were just being sold and everyone's pushing on us. So I think that's really important. Find that level of awareness to make sure that you're really fueling all of your inner passions with that inner dialogue. And let's just make sure to start back from the beginning. Let's make sure you become a better swimmer this year at all costs. That's my one thing for all of you. Even just you've got to make swimming a priority, because it sets your day up so much differently if you're not fearful, or if you get out of the water and you're 5 minutes slower and you're just pissed and you've got a terrible attitude about it. Like, let's solve that problem so you start the day with a really good opportunity to have a good momentum driven finish line. So anyways, that's the goal. I think that's all I got. If anyone has anything else or wants to say a personal thing, go ahead and say it. But of course, you're all released. This is being recorded and I will post it. So hopefully you can share it with your friends, or if you have any comments, how I can do a better job to give any of these impressions, or help you all understand things, let me know. Our next webinar for February is going to be most likely with Scott Tyndall from Fuel In again. So it's a great opportunity to think about nutrition, and they are offering us a special discount also to work on their co-pilot program. I'll be sharing that also with you very soon. So Fuel In, if you need that next month, have some questions, Scott will answer them live, and you will even handle all your intricacies because you're probably not alone. We're all probably dealing with it. So that'll be next month. Until then, there's not a lot of racing going on. We just had our camp. We're going to open up signups probably the next 2 or 3 months. If you wanted to come to camp, all of our coached athletes will have first priority. We'll cut a special deal for you to make sure you can get there first. But we will be capping it at about 26-ish people, and I guess it's up to me. So I'll make that decision. And that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for being part of RTS. And if you need anything, if you want us to do better, if you have ideas, we're open to it. The podcast is doing great. Listen to that. We'll have our camp video out on YouTube soon. We'll have our team gear coming out for all of our Embrace the Journey series with Zoot probably in the next couple of weeks, so you can put in your clothing orders. I know it's a little bit later than we wanted to, but this design and getting all the pro kits and RTSX kits has been a lot. If you need gear, wetsuits, run gear, clothing, running shoes, whatever you guys need, or gals, let us know, and we'll still try to work on getting you some really heavy discounts. Before you go off and buy it, just ask your coach and they can reach out to us, or they'll know. All right. That's all I got. Thank you so much. Peace out.
Good talk, Nick.
Thanks, Gerald. Thanks for saying something. Nice to just have a friend.